Welcome back to the layout section of this tutorial. Now you've made it this far in the course, and now things are gonna get real exciting. Now this one is gonna be a little hard section, so just stick along. And this is also one of the most important ones that you will ever use. Layouts.py is the file that I'm gonna create, and I'm gonna show you how layouts work. Now layouts are really important when it comes to making PyQt programs, and we'll learn about them more later. But here's the thing. We talked about this QV box layout. This QV box layout, all it does is just gives you, well, vertical things. So let me show you more about this. So for example, I can add a widget Q label stuff1, and if I add more stuff to it, to this layout, stuff2, stuff3, stuff4, Python layouts.py, this stuff will come from top to bottom like this. Now what if I want to go horizontal? That's why it's called a vertical layout, because it goes from top to bottom vertically. There is another kind of layout that's called a horizontal layout, and we just have to replace this V with H. This is called a QH box. Now H box is a horizontal box. Think of it like a box. This will of course create 4 boxes and put your stuff there like that. Now there are more interesting layouts there than just this. There is something called a QGrid layout. QGrid layout is really interesting, because you can do with layouts, with these simple layouts, vertical and horizontal, you can do stuff like this and like from top to bottom. But when it comes to grid layout, you can put the grids on. Like for example, I can put one there, I can put down there very easily. So let's talk about the grid layout. Initialize the grid layout by calling QGrid layout. And when we have the QGrid layout, what we can, excuse the noise in the background. The QGrid layout is just like a grid. For example, a matrix has 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2 stuff. That's what the QGrid layout does. Now let me show you how. For example, I'm gonna name this grid now because that's what makes sense. Grid, and I'm gonna make this grid as well. It's just changing the name, nothing more. I'm adding a widget here. It's not just as simple as just adding a widget. You have to tell where you're adding the widget, X and Y coordinates. So for example, 0, 0, I'm gonna add one at 0, 0, I'm gonna add one at 0 at 1, 1, I'm gonna add one at 2, 2, and I'm gonna add one at 3, 3. Let's see what happens. You see that this is going like this. So if I resize this and show you with the code, this index is 0, 0, this is 1, 1, this is 2, 2, and this is 3, 3. I go 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2. So this is showing the row number, and the second one is showing you the column number. 0 row, 0 column. This is 0 row, first column, and this one is of course first row, first column. So I can change this stuff in many other ways. I can go to 0 row, third column, and this will go to the third column. As you can see, you can place it all over the place in a very uniform manner. Now there's another thing called stacked layout, which I'm not sure if we're gonna do it, but I think you should be able to know the stack layout as well. So we're gonna talk about stack layout here as well. It's called a QStack layout, and you don't have to worry about this. We are gonna do this later, as I said, with Qt Designer in a more visually pleasing way. So with the stack layout, I can just add a widget without thinking about this. Now what stack does is it stacks on top of each other. So if I run this, I will only see this. I will not see any of others. I will only see stuff 1. No, not the 4, but the first one. So on top of they are added on top of each other. So if I told you how that actually worked, there's 1, then there's 2, then there's 3, then there's 4. So the one that is added first, that's going to show up first, then the second one, then the third one, then the fourth one. Like, think of it like a stack of plates. So the one that you added first is going to be, so whenever you're stacking plates in such a way that you stack the first place, the second plate comes below, the third plate comes next, and then so on. So the first one will be shown first and everything will be behind it. So you won't be able to see that because it's behind that stack. Now, this is not used a lot, but you can use it in a sense where you can actually change the index with the stack layout of what you are viewing right now, which is the current stack. So that's all you can do with stack layout, but it's way more than that. Sometimes you can just change the index and view different, just like a tab, right? We saw with the tab that Python tabs.py, that's what it is doing, right? I mean, you can think of it like this, but it's not actually what it's doing. But whenever I click this, you can think of it like a stack, and I'm viewing this stack, then I change this index to this stack, and then I change this index to this stack. We will learn that later, which is not important here because you won't be able to understand it well enough, and I won't be able to explain it to you well enough because it's not visually available. We will understand this topic in much depth in the later video where we'll talk about Qt Designer, and I will explain it all of this in a much more easier fashion where we'll drag and drop these buttons and widgets right at the same time. So I'll see you in the next lecture where we'll talk about a toolbar. Toolbar is pretty easy, and I'll see you till then.